Hello, happy Monday, everyone. We are here for our first official pause, work, replay, lower body strength and core session. So how these pause work replays are going to go is we are going to complete our warm-up together, which we will start just now. And then you will listen up for each different part of our session, pausing, completing your prescribed amount of reps and sets on your own, and then coming on back in and listening for the next part. Today we will have 3 different parts to our strength, followed by a nice little core circuit at the end. The one thing that you will need for most of these sessions going forward is an interval timer app on your phone and or on your computer, your tablet, wherever you're watching this on, so that you can time yourself for those intervals that are needed, and I will always tell you when that is happening. Okay, so let's get you started with first off talking about our equipment that we're going to need. Today we will be incorporating our chair, our bench, our ottoman, something along those lines, and then tucked underneath here I have my 8-pound dumbbells, my loop bands, and then of course our mat. So we're going to get you started with a warm-up, which is follow along. So you're going to follow along and do this warm-up with me, which starts off down on the floor, laying down on our back, tucking all the way down on the back, legs out, arms out, palms facing the ceiling. We're going to lift up one leg, grab that knee with opposite hand, take a big breath in, exhale, and pull that guy all the way down as close to the floor as we can get it. Don't feel like you need to touch the floor though. Coming back up to center once we reach that point, switching and doing the other side. We're going to get 5 of these going on each side. That is 2, 10 total, 5 per side. So again, we're trying to exhale. As we go through each of these, we're trying to keep that shoulder, that arm on the floor while we breathe and try to drive that knee a little bit closer towards the floor every single rep. So we'll go through these ones and taking our time. First, most of us are doing this first thing in the morning and or first thing after not doing it too much before, especially this kind of stuff. So we might be feeling a little bit tight, maybe like that knee is not even close to the floor, and that is completely fine. But as we know, as we go through the reps and as we do this over time, over a few sessions, we might be getting a little bit looser, loosening up that back, those hips. We have one more on that left side there, if you're following along with my same tempo here. And exhaling, and then we are going to sit up. So for this next one, it is our 90-90 switches. We want to set ourselves up into this 90-90 position, 90 degrees of both the knees. We're going to lock the heels in place. Some of us might need to lean back, use the use of our hands, but if you can sit upright without any use of your hands, then that's great. We're going to flip the legs right and left, going through 10 of these total. Again, trying to get both of our hips down on the floor, keep those ankles locked and glued to the floor, and then flipping those knees to warm up our hips through our internal and our external rotation. So we'll go through these, again, trying to keep our chest up, although again, some of us might need to lean back a little bit if we are feeling tight and uncomfortable without the use of our hands, and that's okay. So we'll finish up our 10. We have one more here, and then we are standing up to the top. As you guys stand up, the next one, I have my list here, is going to be our leg swings. So we want to find ourselves a wall, something to hold on to. We're going to swing that leg, counting forward and backward is 1. Or again, you don't have to count. You can just follow along with me here. We are going 10 times forward and backward, getting that nice stretching, opening feeling through the front of the hip, through the back of the hip. And again, I am holding on with this hand that's sort of hiding back here so that I don't have to think about balance. Finishing up those ones, the next one is our side to side. This one's focusing on the inner and outer thigh, feeling that similar stretch through the adductor, down the inside of the thigh, and then down the outside as well, outside of the hip. So same count, 10 there and back is 1. We'll finish up those, and then, of course, we have to do the other leg. So we'll switch over to this other leg and swing them out, standing with that leg in a soft knee. We don't want it completely locked out. We want a soft leg. 10, and this arm's just hanging out, helping us with that balance so we don't fall over. And then we will switch, holding on with both hands now, side to side for our lateral ones. So we'll work through these guys here, 10 of them. Finishing them up, taking a sneak peek at what's next. Next one, we are getting into a squat stance. So we're gonna stand with our feet a little wider than our hips, slight angle out in our toes, sitting down, reaching our hands to the floor, standing up, pivoting one foot, reaching towards opposite direction, getting a stretch through the front of this hip. Whole front side of the body is opening, and then we come back to center, touch the floor, do the same thing to the other side. 10 squats total, 5 reaches to each side. Again, getting as close to the floor as we can, trying to get our butt down to 90 degrees at the knees, and then pivoting that opposite foot, pushing up onto the toe, pushing those hips towards the side that we are reaching towards. We'll go through 4 more of these to make it 10 total. Again, breathing as we go through them. Getting that blood flowing, getting everything warmed up if it's not already. We'll finish off those ones with our last one, which is going to be a side lunge. So we're going to bring it on over to one side of our mat. Feet are very close together. We'll step out into that side lunge, sending our hips back behind us, arms in front of us, shifting back over to one side, and then we'll push ourselves up to the top. Switching back, doing the same thing towards the other side. That's 2. We're doing 10 of these total. So we're looking for that nice adductor stretch, inner thigh stretch. And then we push ourselves up, getting some use of our glutes, the back of the hips. Getting those guys warmed up, activated, ready for our first 2 exercises, which are coming up next after these ones. So we'll go through, again, taking our sweet time. We don't want to rush these ones or force anything at this hour of the day, at this time in our lives. We'll go through 1 more per side. Again, sending the hips back behind us so that we can keep our knees back behind our toes. And hopefully you're feeling warm because we are going to get you started on our first superset. Now, this first superset is going to require your dumbbells as well as one of your loop bands. We're using a medium to heavy strength band. Of course, for those of us who don't have these bands, you are going to follow along doing the same thing without the band, but ideally, we want to use these if you have them. Okay, keep it close. We will be using that for part 2. Part 1 is going to be a tempo squat. So what we're going to do is talk about these exercises, and then we will also talk about how many reps and sets you're going to do, of course. So we're doing a front-loaded squat. I'm going to take both of these dumbbells, 8-pounders. If you have an arrangement of dumbbells, you can always use one heavier one, holding it goblet or dog bone style. I'm going to use both of mine though, because 16 pounds is a good place to be for the squats. We're back in that squat stance, so standing a little bit wider than the hips. If you'd like, you can practice a few reps with me here before we start our first official working sets. We're doing a tempo squat, which is a 1, 2, 3 count down, 1, 2 count at the bottom, and then 1 on the way up. So it's a 3, 2, 1 tempo squat. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And then 1 standing up to the top. That would be 2 reps. You will be doing 10 reps total. So again, 3 seconds down, 2 seconds at the bottom, and then a nice explosive 1 second up to the top. That is our first movement. You'll complete 10 reps of that, and then we're going right into our second movement, which is our banded side steps. So I'll be taking this band, putting it around my heels, my ankles like so, standing hip width apart over to one side of our mat. We're going to be using the length of our mat as a reference point. Soft knees will hinge the hips back so we feel loaded up and tight in the glutes. Stepping wider than hip width, wider, hip width. Never allowing the feet to come closer. Arms can stay in front of us. We'll come all the way down until we reach one end of our mat. And then we'll do the same thing, again, sending those hips back behind us, all the way back until we're back home. That is 1. We are doing that twice. So you'll go there and back 2 times total. Then we will unband and complete that 4 rounds. So that would have been our first round. Then you will complete 3 more rounds after that to make it 4 sets total. We're limiting the rest, so we want no time in between these sets, in between these rounds. Back to back, press pause on that video, and you are going to go get this done. Come back in here and listen up for part 2. Okay, there you go. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you're feeling warm, you're feeling good in those hips. That's what we were going for. Part two, we are going to require our chair, our bench. Of course, for those of us who don't have this chair or bench, you're going to do the following two exercises just on the floor. First one's going to be that rear foot elevated split squat. We're going to need our weights again, this time holding them down by our sides. Coming in front of our bench, putting that back foot up on it, going through 8 reps total. So down in a normal tempo, up 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up, 8 reps total of these rear foot elevated split squats, which again, if you don't have the chair bench, foot is on the floor, and you're going to follow along doing the same thing. Again, preferably we want one weight in each hand, but again, if you don't have, if your weights are quite heavy or if you don't have many, you can always hold just one weight in that hand. The other way you can do this is with our anchored band, sending this guy underneath the foot and then anchoring that band, working through that banded resistance for our 8 and our 8. That is our first movement. Second movement is going to be a hip thrust. We are going to be elevating our upper back on this bench chair. We want to weight this one. So I'm going to take both of my dumbbells, put them on top of my hips like this, stacked up. And if you have heavier ones, you can just use one. It's up to you. You can also use nothing if you don't have dumbbells or they're too light or too heavy. And we're working with 15 is the number to be on these ones down here. So we have 15 reps of these hip thrusts. Once again, following our normal tempo always, unless I specify otherwise. 15 reps of these hip thrusts coming up to the top, squeezing our butt, thinking about our glutes. And again, if we need to add pauses in to really get that going on back there, because we know that the glutes are quite lazy muscles and sometimes they need a little bit extra time at the top there to really feel free to add that in as well. Once again, we will have 4 rounds total, 8, 8, 15 here, no time in between, back to back to back, and then you will be finished our second superset. So hit pause, go get that done, and I will meet you back here for the final superset of our strength work. Alrighty, welcome back. So we are back here for our last part to our lower body strength before we go into that core work on the floor. Final part here, we are once again going to require this chair. We're starting back off with another hip thrust variation. No weight involved on this one. We're sticking with the same amount of reps, but we're doing these hip thrusts on one leg. So we have a single leg hip thrust. So setup is the same, and we don't need any equipment. We're going to have our feet very close together as opposed to the other one where they were sort of hip width apart. We want to make sure that we are having our core activated, bringing our ribs and pelvis together, lifting up one leg, driving that knee to the chest, lowering the hips, pushing them up, going through 15 reps per side. So every time, again, we come up, we want to make sure we're reaching that top range. We're not stopping too low, but we're coming all the way up to get that 90-degree angle in that knee. 15 over here, 15 over here. Same rules apply if you don't have bench chair. Your back is on the floor and you're going through that same exercise for 15 reps per leg. With this one, we have another back-to-back superset. We're going right into the second exercise, which, is going to be our straight leg deadlift. So I will be using my dumbbells, holding them in front of my hips, standing in a more narrow stance, hip width apart, soft knees, and then we're hinging the hips back, counting 1, 2, 3 seconds down, following our normal 2 seconds up. So 1, 2, 3, taking a little bit more time than normal to get down to the bottom of those reps. As we're doing that, again, we're focusing on pushing the hips back. We're not just lowering our body or the weights down. We want to really drive the hips back behind us to get that stretching feeling through the hamstrings, the back of the legs. And then again, we pull those hips forward through our 15 reps to beat on that one as well. So this is going to be your last superset. 4 rounds, my friends. And once again, we are working through these 2 exercises back to back, which, as you found out with those first 2 supersets, makes them feel a lot harder as we go through our sets, but that's part of the deal. So go get that done, 4 rounds. Once you're finished, come on back here and we're gonna get our core work in and then we're stretching. We are finished for the day. Okay, here we go. All right, hello and welcome back. We are here for our final part, which is our core work. Now for this last part, all we need is space. So I'm gonna take this chair, move it on out of the way, take these bands, dumbbells, also move them out of the way because all we need is our body and our mat. And we are also going to be setting up on that interval timer. So for these movements, we are working with 60 seconds on, 20 seconds off. If you don't have a timer set up quite yet, you could very well just use like a running clock on, again, your screen, clock on your wall, your phone, but it is much more helpful, as you all know, because I always use our interval timer that stops and beeps when we are supposed to start and stop. So make sure to get that set up for future reference. So 60 seconds on, 20 seconds off. We have 3 movements that we're going to work through. And once again, we're following a theme of 4 sets total of these 3 movements. This first one, we're going to switch halfway. And then we have the other 2 movements after this, where just a straight up minute-long haul to the finish line. So let's start off with this first one, which is our crossover crunch. We're going to be laying on our back here. Arms are extended above our head. We're going to extend one leg down, the knee that is bent. I'm going to take the opposite arm and bring it down and beside me on a 45-degree angle. Starting off, pushing that low back into the floor, lifting up that leg, lifting up that arm. We're going to exhale and crunch those 2 up, meet them in the middle so the shoulder blade leaves, other one stays. 30 seconds will be spent on this side. Again, we have 60 seconds in our round, so we'll spend half the time, 30 on this side, and then we will switch and spend the other 30 seconds, which we have to hustle because there's no time in between there, 30 seconds on this side over here. Once that minute is up, we will have 20 seconds for ourselves to get into our second one, which actually, stays down on our back here, which is our bridge walks. So again, we want to make sure that our low back is squished down into the floor. Feet are hip width apart, knees are bent up. We're going to drive the hips up to the top, lift our arms up and hold them up in this position here, lifting one knee up, stabilizing our hips so that they don't shift or tilt, lifting the other knee up. And this is going to be us for 1 minute. We're going to feel some work happening in the butte and the glutes. But again, lots of work in the core because we're working on that stability of not allowing the hips to tilt and fall. That's the focus here. So if you find this one too challenging, you can always put your hands down on the floor. But we want to make sure that we're up all the way in that high bridge position this entire minute. Okay, so that is our second one. Followed again by 20 seconds of rest. The last and final movement is going to be a plank hold. So you'll flip on over, get yourself in your parallel forearm plank hold situation, and you will finish up with a 60-second plank hold, holding on strong here, breathing through this one until that minute is up, and then we shall complete 3 more sets of that circuit, which is going to take you to the finish line. Okay, so it takes us about 12 minutes total. Set your timers, press pause here, go get that done, and I will meet you back here for our few stretches that we are going to finish off with. All right, welcome back. Here we are for our last and final part of today's session, which is the stretches. So we did a lot of work for back of the hips, the front of the hips. That's what we're going to be focusing our stretches on, starting off with our half kneeling hip flexor stretch. We're not going to be holding these together. We're just going to talk about them. And once again, you are going to put yourself on a timer, which could be, again, a running clock, an interval timer, whatever you choose. And we'll hold each of these for 30 to 60 seconds. If you're short on time today, you have places to be, people to see, then we'll just hold it for 30 seconds per side. But if you want a little bit more benefit from the stretch, if you are feeling a little tight in the hips, then 60 seconds is going to be where you want to put yourself. So this is our hip flexor stretch. We want to make sure we are doing that pelvic tilt, holding on this side, 30 to 60, and then we'll switch, hold the other side, same amount of time that you did on the first. You could do anywhere from 1 to 3 sets. So if again, you're short on time, just complete one round of this. But if you have time, if you want to make yourself time rather, then you can complete anywhere from 2 to 3 additional sets. It's our first stretch. Second one is for the back of the hips. We're going to lay on our back, take that ankle, place it on opposite knee, reach, grab through, and pull it in towards us, getting that nice opening stretch down now the back of the hips. Same rules apply on the time as well as the rounds. So 30 to 60, anywhere from 1 to 3 sets. And we will, again, make it even on both sides by switching and following through that same amount of time, same amount of sets. We have one more stretch that is overall just going to feel real good after all that stuff that you just did, which is this child's pose. So hands and knees, we're going to drive the hips back onto the heels, walk the fingertips away from the body, and we'll hang out here for, again, that same amount of time. And then once you are finished, my friends, you are done. So hopefully you feel good. Hopefully that all worked out for you. And I will catch you guys tomorrow for our upper body. Okay, have a great day.